Hi, I'm Rachel, a radical soul entangled. So I was outside a little bit ago playing with the dog and getting some sunshine, everything. It's like a really pretty day today. And it just kind of got me thinking about what like the nature is of us keeping animals as pets nowadays. Because, back in the day, it was about meeting material needs and survival, right? It was about keeping animals because they give us some kind of material benefit. They give us meat, they give us milk, they give us eggs, give us fiber, things like that. And then we keep cats and dogs because, the dogs can help us with the hunt and they can protect, the campsite, and the cats, once we start cultivating grains, the cats keep the vermin away when we have our storehouses. So, but we still have animals. In fact, we have more cats and dogs than we ever did before, and they're not necessarily, hunting vermin and helping us with hunts or sheepdogs or anything like that. There's so many breeds, So, like, why do we still have animals? And it's partially out of comfort, it's just they're familiar. But I feel like there's like a deeper spiritual root to that. And that is we allow them and we want to help raise their consciousness. Because helping raise their consciousness raises a collective consciousness. And by that, I guess what I really mean is like gets us out of this persistent survival mode way of thinking that keeps us in scarcity, that keeps us thinking we're always in a state of scarcity despite being in massive state of abundance, Despite there being more than enough resources for everyone around us, we still have this scarcity mindset. And so in a way, I think by raising the animals' consciousness, by providing them stable homes and regular source of food, we help them raise their consciousness, because when those needs are being met, we can disengage from the survival way of thinking and we can start to reflect more internally. And that's kind of a double-edged sword. And by that, I mean, there was a story about 20 years ago that I heard about where there was a tiger in a zoo, I think like in Germany or something. And she had recently given birth to like 4 or 5 cubs. And somehow they all got sick and they all died. And she became depressed. She stopped eating. She probably stopped drinking. And when they tried to introduce another male for her to mate, she refused to mate. She didn't want to deal with it. She was inactive. She was just depressed. And that story bothered me profoundly. Because it's like I grew up watching nature documentaries at a very early age. Loved them. And so I knew that, if a new male lion, this is a tiger, but in this case, a lion comes into a pride, he slaughters all the babies that aren't his, right? If he's taken over this pride, so that the females go into heat and that he can mate with them, and now he can raise his own babies. And the females don't seem to care. They're not traumatized by it. They don't grieve, at least, they don't have any kind of trauma response to that. They're probably, I doubt they're happy about it, but they're kind of like, oh, that happened. All right, let's get back at it. Let's just make new babies. Well, this one didn't want to do that. And I think it's like with wild animals, especially once they're kept in captivity, there's, more of a disconnect. They haven't had their brains chemistry altered by generations and generations upon generations of breeding like we have with cats and dogs. We keep them in a somewhat more juvenile state. And this is even true for humans. We're in a somewhat more juvenile state compared to like the other great apes. But that allows us to stay interconnected and have like these massive societies and groups and be able to live together in relative harmony. Despite what you see in the news, we live together in relative harmony, right? Considering how many of us there are. So let's not get into that humans are terrible creatures thing, all right? But the tiger didn't have that breeding. She still had a brain highly evolved for pure survivalist. And here she was, she had her babies gone and she couldn't hunt, you know, she couldn't get out her emotions, connect with her body in any other way. She just had to sit there and think about her dead babies until the solution was that they found some piglets, young piglets. They skinned her babies and wrapped the tiger cub hides on the piglets, and she nursed the piglets, and she came out of that depression because she was able to go through her like full mothering cycle. And yeah, so like I said, domestication is like a double-edged sword. So there needs to be like breeding that not infantilizes, but keeps us in a more juvenile mindset, because that way we are more integrated. Tigers are highly solitary species because they are in such a high degree of survival consciousness. I've got to protect my territory because my territory has my resources for food and water and mates. And so I have to protect that, you know, to the death if necessary. Otherwise I'll die. There won't be enough for me and I'll die. And we're still kind of in this survivalist mode now, like I said, even though we're in the midst of abundance. And I think that by keeping animals as pets, as companions, is that we're reducing this amount of survival consciousness in a collective consciousness. Because yes, I believe that all our souls, all our minds, you know, are connected at some spiritual level. And so we're starting to elevate the collective consciousness of the planet beyond a survival consciousness and into a consciousness of like integration and a deeper sense of knowing. And we're sharing that with animals. And like I said, double-edged sword, because now what happens is our pets start to suffer from some of the things that we are suffering from, because we are in a split. A lot of us are in this split of not enough, but being surrounded by abundance, you know, and we have this anxiety where you just have to keep doing and doing and doing more. So let me think. So, and our animals act as a reflector of that. You know, we project our anxieties into our environment, into our households, or even in our pets. They pick it up and they reflect it back to us. So chances are, if you have a dog or a cat with a high degree of anxiety, you are probably projecting massive amounts of anxiety. And you're probably like, yeah, I know, I take my anti-anxiety pills. I try to do things to manage my anxiety, but, you know, I'm not. Well, you know, your pet is showing you how effective those exercises are or not, you know. And I used to be a pharmacy tech, and I was amazed at how many like pet prescriptions we did for cats and dogs with anxiety, you know. And sometimes we had, you know, I would see the progression where it's like started on antidepressants, then they had to go to like tramadol, the more harder anti-anxiety drugs, then they had to even go to like, some dogs had to go to phenobarbital, you know, or be like low key like anesthetized whenever, you know, they couldn't be around, whenever there was like separation with their owner, because that's, you know, how reliant they are. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that to remind you that we're like the energetic leads. You know, we are this authority and consciousness for our pets. You know, we think, oh, I'm their pet parent. Well, you know, I'm the fur mama, I'm the fur daddy, you know, I'm a pet parent. And that's true, but you're even more than that to them. You're a consciousness mentor. And if your consciousness is all over the place when it comes to, you get caught up in your thoughts that keep you in an anxious state or in a depressed state, you know, even when things are overall going well around you, you still shift to high anxiety thoughts. Your pets pick up on that and they start having high anxiety thoughts, you know, and they reflect your anxiety right back to you. So, now I'm sure this is going to make a lot of people feel bad. And it's not meant to make you feel bad. It's actually meant to give you a lot of gratitude for your pet. Learn to value their anxiety to show you the real truth about how you're dealing with your anxiety or your depression. And seek ways to deal with it that are more than just like superficial. You have to really like restructure your thinking, restructure your attitude, be highly vigilant about how your behavior cultivates, and even just mean even thought behavior, cultivates your chronic anxiety or your depression or things like that. Because I've seen that as I have gotten into increased states of mastery over my energy, over my ways of thinking, over how I express my emotions, and I have like control over my mood. I'm happy more often than not. I did not think that was possible. Even like, 2 years ago, even a year ago, I don't think I thought it would be possible to be happy more often than not unless somebody or something was making me happy. But yeah, our pets keep us grounded, remind us that we're earth beings. But we have to be like consciousness mentors to them. And when they're not responding well, when they're not, when we see that they're suffering from anxiety or depression, we need to take that, not just like, oh, there's something wrong with my dog, I need to fix it. There's something wrong with my cat, I need to fix them. We need to see that more as a mirror, as like a gauge of how well we're doing, so that we can get back to, seeing that we're in a state where we're not elevating our own consciousness. So we need to elevate our own consciousness so that we can elevate their consciousness and get us out of this whole survivalist scarcity mindset. If I'm losing you with this, let me know in the comments. I'll try to explain more. But anyway, I need to go check on the dog. My name is Rachel, Radical Soul Untangled. Thank you so much for listening. Take care.